Okay, we'll see. Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, it's late. If I had not taken a nap yesterday or earlier, I would be sleeping right now. The only reason I decided to go live on this was because I was thinking about it, and I was actually thinking to not go live. And then I saw Britt responded to one of my comments on a post that she reposted, or a post she made. And she said, "You should go live and we should talk about this." And I thought, well, I was actually thinking about it and I was persuaded to not do it because emotions run high on these events. People become so emotionally invested into the political party, the political puppet show, that they don't see through some of the deceptions. And it's because their emotions are recruited. When you've got a bunch of people in the media that are reading the same scripts, there's always some kind of question going on about this in my mind because I've investigated a lot of these events. And when I say these events, I mean the events that they're using to justify further restrictions upon the people, further infringements upon the people. And that's what they ultimately do. What's going on, Miranda? Welcome. So, Miranda, do you know who Charlie Kirk was? Hey, what's going on? The Blueberries and John Benedict. How many people? Yeah, just got a few people came in here. I decided to do a live stream to talk about Charlie Kirk. I don't know a lot about him. I've seen his face. I can't even say honestly that I've even heard his name before today. Yeah, well, so there's a lot of emotions that are recruited into these kinds of events. And when a person's emotions are recruited, it makes it very difficult to critically analyze information. And I immediately, when I heard the news, I heard it through a Substack post that James White from Southern Draw Law did. Dude, I don't know why people say I look like some dude named Walter White. You're like the 10th person that's come in here just saying that before. I looked up Walter White. I don't see the resemblance, but that's how other people view me. I must look similar to him in people's eyes. The word gay means happy. And I would have to say, no, I'm not very gay. No. And no, I'm not a sodomite either. Sodomites aren't happy, but they like to use the word gay to identify themselves. Maybe it's like they're trying to manifest something that's not there. But I hadn't really heard of Charlie Kirk until this post was put up. And then I started looking into it, looking into him, looking into the event. And I saw a lot of correlations which raised red flags and kind of set off alarms going on that something's not right. And one of them was the media was all reading the same script. So the script was already written for the media to repeat. And then you've got fake crying going on by the journalists or the prostitutes. Glenn Beck was on some show and I saw that. Then it just so happens that he was an advocate for the Second Amendment, and let guns be everywhere. And one of the things he was quoted as saying was, people dying is a byproduct of the Second Amendment. And so, talk about a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I see these coincidences. And at the moment that he was shot, he was just speaking about a mass shooting. He was answering a question about mass shootings. So all of these coincidences adding up, they paint a picture. And a lot of people don't know that many of these events are highly orchestrated. And many of them, like the one that took place in July of this year with the Pennsylvania event, was a complete hoax. Now, I'm going to withhold judgment on this one with Charlie Kirk because I haven't seen all the information, and that's why the title of this is Charlie Kirk Questions. I have questions, and I think anyone that's reasonable should be questioning the things that we're being told, because the media is syndicated. There's only like 3 corporations that control almost all the media. What's going on, Stephen? We're talking about Charlie Kirk and the coincidences. I'd also like to announce for the people that are on here, I don't censor my channel. Sometimes YouTube will automatically censor comments. They have the automatic algorithms, but I don't do that. The only thing I censor are people that spam. And I don't really get a lot of spam anymore. When I first started streaming, I'd see a lot of spammers coming in, but I let people say lovers, haters, fans, trolls, everybody's welcome. But yeah, so there was a lot of interesting coincidences about surrounding him. And another thing that I'd heard was that he was considered to be one of the key factions in the selection of Donald Trump. Somehow, whatever, he swayed the youth in Arizona or some shit. I mean, I don't we don't get our choice. And that he was very intimately connected, not in a weird way, but very intimately connected with Vance, Mr. Palantir himself, which is one of the globalists companies that control the whole show of everything. He was an insider for sure. And I'd also heard, Karen, I appreciate your concern, but I actually smoke natural tobacco. That's what I'm making natural tobacco, and it's actually good for you. It's not harmful. It's the chemicals that they spray on the tobacco that they're going to mass produce in pre-made cigarettes. That's what's bad for you. There are a lot of herbs that have benefits that you get from smoking. But thank you for your concern. I do appreciate that. And there's been rumor. I don't know who Charlie Kirk is. I haven't investigated to find out his stands and what he said, but one of the things that I'd heard today was that he was one of the few people that was, even though he was one of Donald Trump's key supporters, he was critical of Donald Trump not releasing the the infamous Epstein files, which there's probably plenty of reason for that. Considering Donald Trump was Epstein's very good friend, and according to Donald Trump, they had a lot in common, and they both liked their ladies on the younger side. Um, and so whether he is actually dead, which it's possible, it's likely, you know, or whether he's not. But here's an interesting thing. Immediately, the news began to read scripts. They didn't have a suspect yet, and they were already pushing a narrative of a motive. They already had the motive lined out. It was politically motivated, it was somebody from the left, and it was a political thing. Well, wait a minute. How do you know? How do you know it wasn't somebody that owed him money? How do you know that it wasn't a an assassination by the insiders because he started going outside of the bounds of what he was supposed to do? Or how do you know that this wasn't all part of his deal that he made with the devil, so that at his time, it was time for him to go? You know, if you don't know what I'm talking about with that, then, you know, maybe I'll catch up on that another time. But my point is, unless you've caught the guy that actually shot him, you don't know what the motive is, right? You can't know what the motive is. It's not possible. But magically, all of the scripts of all of the syndicated media have the motive before they've got the suspect. According to reports, they apprehended one suspect who ended up not being they didn't have probable cause to keep him, and so they just sent him. They set him free with a charge to show up in court for obstruction. So once they arrest somebody, it's like a CYA policy that police officers have to charge the arrestee with something, even if it's not a legitimate crime, because that will inevitably prevent a lawsuit from taking place. Because if they arrest somebody unlawfully, you have to have probable cause to make an arrest. Probable cause means it's a higher burden of proof than just a reasonable suspicion that they've committed a crime. It's you have to have evidences that are going to stand up scrutiny in the court of law, and that's what probable cause is. And they didn't have that, so they had to set them free. But instead, they went ahead with a lower charge of obstruction. And last I heard, they had some other suspect, but they really they don't know who did. I think it was a message. Well, yeah, it very well could be. It very well could be. I find it interesting. I find it interesting that he was a man that was pro, Second Amendment, so to speak. And when somebody says they're pro Second Amendment, I found that in the mainstream of the red team, which seems to be the team that's mostly pro Second, they're not pro Second Amendment. They are pro whittling away at the Second Amendment. Because what they'll say is, well, we should have common sense gun laws. We should have the right to bear arms except for this guy and except for that guy and except for this guy, and the government should have some kind of filter to keep people from bearing arms. It's like, well, wait a minute. What part of shall not be infringed don't you understand? That the Constitution is just toilet paper for the people in power, basically. But I do find that part of the narrative interesting, and it was not a coincidence that he was literally talking about that event, which was a hoax up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. At Annunciation. Oh boy, that I looked into that because a lot of people don't know, and my channel's probably not going to be sent into the mainstream over this stuff. But prior to October 1st, 2015, the great censorship of the internet, there were a lot of channels on YouTube that were exposing these events and showing forth all critical analysis of these events. Let me see. He had to calculate the wind, the scene, his actions, his escape route, precise and yet still running. Yeah. Yeah, it's important to critically analyze these things. I spent too many hundreds of hours going over video footage of what they've given us in the wake of these events. And prior to 2015, there were many other people that were publishing very well done videos of how they critically analyze these events. And they proved beyond any reasonable doubt that the vast majority of them that I looked into were completely hoax events. Like nobody died. In fact, in all of these events that took place prior to 2015, I never did find one where anyone died. There was one where one person died. His name was Stephen Paddock, and that was in 2017, I think, at the Las Vegas thing. To my knowledge, he was the only person that most likely died in that event. And interestingly enough, he was a man that had ties with the ATFE and the FBI, and he had a private airplane, and he would take frequent flights in and out of Mexico. And he was uh, most likely involved in smuggling guns and smuggling people. They call it human trafficking. 100 yards is not easy for a rookie. No, and according to the reports, it was 200 yards. And yeah, there would have been, I don't know how windy it was, but it was kind of in an enclosed area, buildings around it and all that. So I don't think the wind would have played much of a deal, but the elevation would. In fact, if they were aiming for his head and he hit his neck, then that would kind of compensate for the elevation being higher. You actually have to aim lower. Yeah, so you have to adjust by aiming lower because of the distance is going to close in with gravity better. Um, so I'm a deer hunter also. I shoot projectiles from an elevated position, and whenever a deer is the closer a deer is to me, the lower I have to aim, and because it's actually hitting the ground faster than if I'm shooting straight across. So I'm aiming down. It's got a lot more speed to hit the ground at the same distance because it's actually using gravity. Yeah, that was another thing. Thank you for mentioning Israel. That's another thing I heard about um, Charles Kirk is that he was um, vocal about the Israeli Mossad being a part of some of the events that are going on in the world. Um, Muslims are a danger to civilization. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't think you really know what you're talking about, dude. It's interesting that it is interesting that you have a username that says Jesus Christ is Lord when that's what the new Bibles are saying, and that's what the churchianity says. But God's word says that no man can say that Jesus Christ is the Lord, but by the Holy Ghost. I think that's in Hebrews chapter 4. The word "the" is important because that signifies Jesus Christ as being the Lord, one and only, the Lord. But all the new Bibles say Jesus Christ is Lord, and that minimizes who he is. And if you don't know the difference between somebody saying they are the king or they are a king, then you don't, I mean, I can't help you. It's really plain English, but a lot of people nowadays don't even understand the value of semantics and the value of the meanings of words anymore. Um, when you know too much they silence you at best not to know. Well, when you publish too much, that's really what it is. Not so much how much you know, but how much you're publishing and you're broadcasting. Now, if he used this platform to say things that he wasn't allowed to say, then so be it. But I actually suspect that he was reading his script. He was not a rogue person. He did what he was told to do. He was a puppet. And it very well could be that this was his purpose as his position as a puppet. Um, Let me see. If you should have, if you should have shoot a deer at 200 yards, right on the dime, you're in the wrong show. Yeah, right. Um, there's very few people in the world that can shoot a deer at 200 yards with a bow and an arrow. But that's what I use. I use a bow and an arrow. The furthest I've ever taken a deer is about 50 yards out. I used to practice at 80 yards all the time, and that way anything less was pretty much cake. Kirk's looking up. Yeah, he very well could be. He very well. I mean, he was interconnected with Palantir and the deep state. He was given that platform in in all of the controlled right circles and all that. So 100%. I mean, yeah. And he was also at the time that he was, if he's dead, which I don't really have any reason to believe that he's not dead, other than some of the correlations between this event and many others that were not true. But, I'm going to reserve my judgment on that because I have not fully investigated. But one thing I have investigated enough to find out is this was absolutely a pre-planned, orchestrated event by the powers that be, by the deep state. They already had the scripts running for all the reporters all around the world. They're already reading the same scripts. And they had an FBI chief and the chief of the head of the university, and the chief of the university campus police, and then the sheriffs, and they had this huge press conference to put forth a timeline and give a narrative. There was an interesting thing. They gave a motive in that press conference when they didn't have anyone arrested for, how do you have a motive before you have a what do you call it, someone charged? You have to have somebody charged in order to even be able to begin to get their motive, or there has to be something written down. There has to be some, but there's no evidence of a motive. I mean, you're talking about the intent of a man's heart, and you don't even know who the man is yet. Come on, think about that. Think about that. I mean, that's really important to think about. When you shoot your bow and arrow, do you hold the bow straight up and down, or hold the bow on an angle? My bow I keep straight across, but I'll tip my body at an angle because I keep my anchor points the same. And so I will, I keep my, yeah, so it's going to be this way. My bow is going to be straight up and down, but then I tip my body at an angle. I pivot at the waist. One day we will be bozos. It's just a matter of time. When and who. Kirk's looking, yeah. But, so it's obvious to me that this whole thing was orchestrated. They're turning it into a false narrative of having a motive. And that absolutely is a false narrative, because you can't have a motive, which is the intent of a person's heart, when they commit a crime, if they don't even know the person yet, seriously. And they were projecting the motive. At the same time, they said, well, we had one suspect, but he was uh, eliminated from the options because they found that he wasn't the guy, and so they set him free with charges for obstruction or some BS. He meant how the Japanese shoot. Wow, Dr. Drew, you know exactly what he meant, because I don't know what he meant. To me, I was thinking he was asking if I do this or if I do this. But I do this, and then I do this. I mean, but hey, I mean, you know what he means. I was just going by what he said. You must have this magical understanding of something deeper than the words that he put on the screen. Holds the archer I saw, made of stars, holds his bow at a 45-degree angle. So I'll be right back. This would be holding the bow at a 45-degree angle. Now you can't even pull a string back. You'd have to pull the string back this way, which doesn't give you any kind of consistency. Whether you're using your fingers or you're using a release, which traditional archers will use their fingers, that bow has to be in line here. But of course, if you're down, it's still, you're pivoted at the hip and you're still holding the bow straight up and down. You're just turning your arm down. But if you're holding the bow, like you're saying, holding the bow at a 45-degree angle, you can't shoot it. So I just got that for demonstrative purposes to show you. I mean, but you're talking about a vision that you saw in the sky of an archer. No, twist your wrist. Twist your wrist. Oh, and that's another thing I wanted to say too, though. I did want to show this just because this is one thing that happens when you're drawing back and as soon as you release the arrow, so even though it's straight up and down, the 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 arrow clears the string, the bow drops. And so you have to catch it. In fact, this is why they sell these wrist tethers. You put your hand through there so that when it drops, you can just, it can't drop out of your hand. You're tethered to it. And I learned a long time ago by a professional archer that when you release it, the bow automatically wants to jump forward and drop. So it kind of does this and then drops. They said, don't ever try to squeeze it. That's one of the things people make a mistake and open up their groupings for is by gripping the bow when the arrow releases. We got talking about bow and arrow. So when you grip it, if that arrow hasn't left the string yet before the bow jumps forward, or as the bow's jumping forward, you can cause the arrow to go off a little bit. The bow would be to the side angle, not a pointing down angle. Yeah. No, I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. Oh, you know why? You know why people in the city shoot their guns like this? Because when they open up the box, the gun's laying there and they just pick it up. Are you referring to the way a crossbow is? Instead of it being this way, it's this way. Instead of being vertical, it's horizontal. Because the word angle, and I think you said down at an angle. Let me see. Hold the bow straight up and down, or hold the bow on an angle. Okay, so you didn't say down, but you said on an angle. So I think you're saying horizontal, like up and down being vertical, and when you said angle, I think you meant horizontal, correct? Is that what you mean? Like he's saying, shooting like this instead of shooting like this. What's going on, Rogue? Hey, people. Like that, how a gangster shoots his gun. Yeah, you can't do that with a bow and arrow. I mean, well, you know what? Yes, never mind. I'm not going to say that you can't do that. That is not a traditional way to shoot a bow. Lars Anderson is one that's shown that there is a whole bunch of different ways you can shoot a bow, and he's actually taught. Now, since we're talking about bows, um, when David got word that Saul and Jonathan were dead, he mourned and grieved, and he lamented, with a song. But before he lamented with the song, he charged them, the people that were around, that they should teach the use of the bow, because the use of the bow is a very important skill to have when you're in war and in battle in those days. It'd be the same thing as today, teach somebody, well, it's the more advanced weapon because it goes a lot further and a lot greater distance. So today it would be like, teach them how to use a cruise missile. Because that's the more advanced, well, one of them anyway. There's probably a lot more that we don't know about, but we'll find out really soon here, I'm pretty sure. Hey, Freddie. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I'm still reserving my judgment on that whole thing, Freddie. Nope. I'm drinking very good water. Nope, very good water. I'm not much of a drinker at all. Once in a great while, I'll have a rum and coke, but only one, and I don't like to get drunk at all. Yeah. And why do people say rest in peace when somebody dies? Ever think about that? I mean, God doesn't say that there is any peace, that there is no rest. When a person dies, they're either going to go to paradise with Jesus Christ or they're going to be in torments, but there's no rest. And the scripture says, there is no rest for the wicked, saith my God. And make no mistake about it, he was a wicked man. He was a deep insider. He was one of Donald Trump's very close confidants and what do you call it? Advisors. And if you believe that Donald Trump is an outsider, then you fell for it, you know. Uh, I had this thing, in fact, I'll pull it up, that I was just off the top of my head. This is way back. When did I write this down? I think this was in 2020 um, when I wrote it, but I don't know if I could see it anymore when it was. Oh, maybe I have to do this. Hold on. Oh, wait, before I do this, let me see when. Yeah, okay, so I did add something to it since then. Um, right on, Freddie, I'm 54. I said, these are just things that I wrote down about Donald Trump because a lot of people believed that he was an outsider. I said, he didn't go after the Federal Reserve, but instead, he appointed the banking monopolist executives to watch over the Federal Reserve. He didn't go after the food and drug monopolists. Instead, he appointed industry insiders, executives, to oversee their own industries. He didn't end the military industrial complex. He instead appointed defense contractors to oversee spending. He didn't stop the spraying of aluminum oxide and barium into the atmosphere. Instead, he increased the stratospheric aerosol injections. He didn't stop the fluoridating of the drinking water supply. He didn't end massive government spending. He actually increased government spending and national debt exponentially, laying the largest burden of debt upon the tax cattle than any single U.S. president ever in the history of the world, in the history of the nation. Donald Trump changed legal immigration to prohibit low social credit score applicants from entering in legally, but they like to call it illegal immigration. He signed immigration reform to separate children from their parents at the border, to use their children as ransom to gain the parents' compliance with the United Nations Agenda 2030. He appointed industry monopolists into federal agencies to watch over their own industries. In 100% complicity with the published plan to lock the world down in a national state of health emergency, he signed over this nation to the global agenda to restrict liberties. He did that on Friday the 13th, March 13th, 2020, at 3:30 p.m. to show his allegiance to the sacred timing of the esoteric secret societies that he is involved in, and gifted $876 billion to the pharmaceutical companies to further indebt the tax cattle and give free money to those companies to mass produce the MAGA clot shot. He gave the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the largest budget in the history of the nation so that they can buy food and medicine, which will be eventually rationed to the tax cattle that money was stolen from, in exchange for compliance with giving up their rights. We are in a spiritual war. I actually think that the great war in heaven is underway at this very moment. Revelations chapter 12. The first seal, the horseman, is given a crown. Now, I'll go into that later, but maybe in another video. Um, but my point is that a lot of people, and I hear this a lot, well, Donald Trump was fooled in his first term. He wasn't fooled at all. He did exactly what he was told to do by his masters, as he is doing this term also. The only people that are fooled are the people that believe that he's an outsider. Charlie was killed in cold blood. You monster. If Charlie was killed, he was most likely killed by the intelligence agencies. If he was killed. I'm not saying I haven't seen the information yet. I haven't been able to critically analyze it. You got a cool chuckle laugh. It reminds me of that guy on Beavis and Butthead. Oh boy. Let me see. I'm going back. I missed some of these comments. How come they don't find the shooter? I thought the U.S. was a smart country. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. There's the question right there. How come they don't find the shooter? Ask questions and don't accept answers that don't satisfy critical analysis. Be critical with your thinking. Okay, so I think I caught up on most of those. Um, Give me one reason not to report this as misinformation. Oh, I'm not going to give you any reason, dude, because I'm asking questions. Because I stated a whole bunch of factual things that Donald Trump did. I mean, I don't know. You're triggered about something. Censorship. That okay? So I'll give you one reason why. First off, you'd be lying if you reported it. I mean, but you probably don't have a problem with lying. Secondly, censorship has always been a tool used to control a narrative. That's what it's for. The whole purpose of censorship is to control a narrative and to restrict the freedom of open forum discussion and to prevent thoughts that you don't want entered into a conversation. That's why I don't censor my channel for anything other than spam. I censor spam. But if you read through history, before they had the internet, and you had a report button, or you had a block button, or you had a ban button, or you had a delete or a hide, all of these buttons that we have to censor people. When you bring it down to its very core, what it is you're saying that you don't think this person should have a voice. And if you think that a person shouldn't have a voice, you really think that they should be dead. And that is murder in your heart. And that's what they did back in the day before they had all of these digital abilities to silence people. In order to silence somebody, they would have to put them in a cage, beat them up, or kill them. And so you are of your father, the devil, because he was a murderer from the beginning. And that's what you have in your heart if you believe that a person should be silenced. You're a murderer. And that's why I don't censor, because you have a voice. The government killed Charlie Kirk, so obvious. I'm kind of leaning toward that as the most likely scenario. You said Trump was a slave. Yeah, Trump is a slave. This is lunacy, conspiracy theory. Oh no, no, you're just following what you've been told. But if you can't handle information that comes against what you believe and maybe even uh, indicts your idol as not being the person that you believed he was, and you've got some issues there. I'm spreading harm. Your actions have. How am I spreading harm? Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying, dude. Seriously. Yeah, it's like people just drivel what they without thinking. They just shit comes out. Just shit comes out. No, it's harmful to believe that any of these controlled politicians are in any way going to be helpful to you. You're literally speaking about a man who has created a heavier tax burden on the people of the United States of America than any sitting president in the history of the world. He brought the national debt up exponentially and brought up the annual budget to the highest point it's ever been in the history of the world or the history of the nation. And it's like, oh yeah, he's an outsider. And all the billionaires got became 25% more wealthy in 1 year with the stroke of his fucking pen. Because it's not only his pen that he's stroking, but he's given a reach around to his buddies. Oh, that's another thing. The Rothschilds, they were the ones that were holding the banks that gave him his money to start his enterprise. His money is all founded in Rothschild's money. If you think he's an outsider, you've been fooled. And it's not a dangerous thing that's going to cause harm if I tell you the truth. Words, words of truth, they hurt you, they harm your feelings. Oh my. I don't have any preparation H because I don't get butt hurt, but you could go to the Walgreens and you could buy some. It might soothe your butt hurt. Oh, Charlie Kirk got what was coming for him. Well, Connor Streetman. What a poor soul. Google is so. Oh boy. You stupid, unhinged Democrats killed him. You idiots have issues, and you stop. Think it's going to keep. Mr. Google is so great. I think you don't really understand how the world works. The red and the blue teams are controlled by the same people, and they keep people divided by recruiting people's emotions into topics that will inevitably touch on their values of morality, which they have been programmed to believe. And to give you an example, on the left, people are programmed to believe that a boy can be a girl, and if they've been groomed to believe that a boy is a girl and a boy wants to be a girl, then they consider it harmful for you to do otherwise, because then it causes mental torments, not recognizing that there's a mental torment in believing that you are something that is exactly the opposite of what you're designed. But they give their heart to believe these lies. And so then they come in opposition with the people, or the people that come in opposition with that belief are usually what's called the moral majority, the right. And they get all angry about, you're teaching our children these things, and they fight against it. And then there's emotions that go back and forth. Meanwhile, the military industrial complex and the industrial monopolists are still making money hand over fist, while they got the plebs, the tax cattle, arguing and fighting over each other, and they're blaming the blue and they're blaming the red, and they're all back and forth flapping against each other. And the right wing and the left wing are two wings of the same dirty bird, and they have to flap against each other. When a bird flies, it has to flap, its wings have to flap against each other to push air to lift the body up. And so that's what they got you doing, believing that it's the other team's a bad team, when in actuality it's the puppets are the ones that are in the positions that, like the Donald Trumps and the Joe Bidens and the Obamas and the governors and the senators and the congressmen. They're, the red and the blue teams, they are controlled, every one of them. I found it to be true at the very local level. You cannot enter into the red team or the blue team unless you are controlled. They do not allow anyone in their club unless they have controls over you. That's a fact. And Donald Trump was a Democrat his entire life until he decided to run for president. So there's that. Let me see what we got here. There is a. Oh boy. Let me see, Google. You people lie about everything. Ignore what your party does and just keep acting like you're all untouchable. Just wait till it swings back around. You couldn't understand the truth. You couldn't even comprehend the truth. Yeah, I know the truth is kind of bothersome to people. So, Connor, yeah, thank you for showing yourself to be a child of your father, the devil, wanting somebody to be dead for no reason, for speaking the truth. That's why you have murder in your heart, Connor. You've shown that. I fought in Afghanistan for America. No, no, Dinovic, you didn't fight for America. You actually invaded a foreign land under false pretenses for the global monopolists to set up a political puppet show like we have here, so that their puppets are in power and they could get the poppy seeds going. That was one of the larger resources that Afghanistan had that the pharmaceutical companies and the chemical companies wanted, because after Afghanistan was conquered, which is what it was a conquest, um, all of a sudden they allowed poppies to be grown, and to top it off, they got these genetically modified poppy seeds that were drought resistant. Imagine that. No, you didn't fight for America. You fought against the people, but for the politicians and the industry monopolists. And that's the truth. Okay, Connor. Since you've already said that you wish me dead and you've um, levied false accusations against me and claimed to have reported me, then I'm done engaging with you. I could give you many things, but I've already shared enough, and your reactions say a lot. Your reactions speak of who you are, and that's why I don't censor people. I let their words stand so that your words and my words can be judged by many, not just between you and I, but everyone can see your words and they can see what kind of a person you are, and that's why they're there. Yeah, I am up late tonight, dude. I took a nap earlier, and I was thinking about doing a stream to talk about Charlie Kirk, and then I decided not to, or I was leaning toward not to, and then Brooke, she comes in as We Know is the name of her channel. She's a mod too. She's been there a few times. She responded or replied to a comment of mine like at 11:30 or 12 and said, "Hey, you should do a live stream. Let's talk about it." And then, of course, she didn't stick around for the live stream to talk about it. I think she went to bed because it's late, dude. It's 1 o'clock here. Yeah. So I'm just gonna skip on past it. It was an American war. Oh yeah. I mean, Dinovic, You can believe whatever you want. You have the freedom to believe whatever you want, but I'm telling you, um, one of the main here's something I want to share with people. You're talking to somebody that served in the military. Um, when a man believes that what he's doing is noble, and he goes off to war and he goes to fight, and he believes in his heart that what he's doing is noble, he will face death with great bravery because what he's doing in his heart he believes is noble, which is why brainwashing is important to the troops. They have to drill, drill, drill the brainwashing into the troops. That's what basic training and boot camp is. That's why they call them drill sergeants. That's why you're constantly marching left, 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 yo left, pick it up, yo left, ooh, yo left, pick it up, yo left, ooh, you gotta be in a rhythm. Everybody's gotta be in the same rhythm so they can start pounding the words in your head that we are the good guys, the bad guys are dead, we're gonna jump in a foxhole. I mean, that's what it is. It's drilling, brainwashing people to believe that we're the good guys and they're the bad guys, and wherever they send us, we're only sending us to kill bad guys, and we're never the bad guys. We're always the good guys. That's kind of the gist of the brainwashing that takes place in the military. Then you get over there believing that you're the good guys, but you start seeing the people and you start finding out things that weren't taught to you back in the United States. And you start finding out that those towers came down because of controlled demolitions, and there was intelligence agencies with military industrial complex contractors that made trillions of dollars off of that event and gave them a blank check to invade these other lands who weren't playing ball with the central bankers. And now all of a sudden they are, after the United States conquered that land and took them over and installed central banking systems and polling booths. And then when they find this out and they're over there, now, they no longer have the same bravery because their brainwashing is starting to, erode away, and they're starting to see things as they actually are. And now they realize that they're worthy of death. And every time they hear a gunshot, or they hear an explosion, or they hear a concussion, it causes them to fear. Instead of facing death bravely, now it causes them to fear because they know that bullet is justly belongs in their head because they're the ones that have invaded the land. And so then it causes this great trembling and shaking when you hear bullets. It's like, oh, that's what PTSD is usually the cause of PTSD. Not a very popular thing, but it's a very truthful thing. But, yeah, people are brainwashed. We have been lied to from our youth. The fact that political blindfold can create virtue signaling to ignore the potential of evil existing on either side is astounding. Yes, Andrew. I'm sorry I took so long to get back to you because I went on a little bit of a rant there, but no, it's all about morality. It's all about subjective morality, and that's one of the reasons why it was so important over the last 50 or 60 years that the government indoctrinational facilities they call schools teach that there is no absolute truth and that truth is subjective or relative, as is morality. And once you've removed people from a solid foundation of what is right and what is wrong, then you can manipulate people's minds and hearts. And that's really the key right there. The heart is the most deceptive thing above all things. And if you can get a hold of the hearts of the young people when they're young, you can steer an entire generation. Hitler understood it. The propagandists understand it, and the people that are in power use it. Absolutely. If you agree with him or not, yeah, I don't even. I'm still on the fence about whether or not he's been, if he's expired, but he probably is. Most probably, but I still withhold my judgment after having studied many of these events. Um, yeah, Desert Fox, that might be true. We don't know yet, but it's a possibility. Morning, Flight Frenzy, T-Rex. Kirk was there to spew hate, and some higher force said, "Not today, bro." Drill, baby, drill. Yeah, right. Weapons of mass destruction? Nope, didn't see any over there. Ha ha ha. Drill, baby, drill. It's not about believing when Article 5 is evoked. All NATO countries has to help. Yeah, I know. It's an interesting thing. Yeah, you sold yourself over to become government property. I know. Flight Frenzy, are you good? There is one good, even God, that's it. Desert Fox, why is this so hard for people to comprehend? Yeah, dude, I don't know. And then people get butthurt when they hear the truth. Like that Connor guy, he's like, I'm reporting you for misinformation. You're going to harm people by telling people things that we don't want them to know or hear because we believe, because we have a bubble. I told him, I said, go get some preparation H, man. That might help your butt hurt. Jesus Christ loves you. Please allow him into your heart and come to him. No one deserves to be killed this way, especially in front of your own family. Oh, that one gray night. Anyone who says he was there to spew hate doesn't know Charlie. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a restaurant. I may not agree with a lot. I can say he was a genuine guy who meant well. Dinovic. No, we didn't want that war. I didn't want that war, and I never believed I was brainwashed. We hated you for starting that war, and now you threatened us. What are you talking about? You hated me for starting that war? I didn't start that war. It was, you're talking Afghanistan? That whole thing was off of 9/11, dude. And if you don't know the truth, or if you've denied the truth of 9/11 and you've bought the story hook, line, and sinker, what they told us, that's pretty sad, dude, because it doesn't take much critical analysis to look at those buildings. I mean, there was over 7,000 engineers and architects that signed on to a petition to do an independent investigation because the official story defies all laws of physics, all of them. It's not even physically possible, the official story, but that's where the heart comes in. The heart of man is above all deceptive and desperately wicked. If they can recruit your emotions into any story, then it becomes almost impossible for you to critically analyze the information. You really need to stop being a woman, and you need to man up with your emotions, set them aside. God made us, made man in his own image. And man, yes, we have emotions, but he's given us a greater ability than women have to set our emotions aside and analyze things much more critically. And that's what I challenge you to do with the things that you believe that you are emotionally moved in. And anytime somebody and there's something that's important too. anytime somebody presents information that recruits an emotional reaction, that should be a check engine light in you. And that should be the thing that causes you to look introspectively to find out, why am I becoming emotional about information? Why is information causing me to become angry? Think about that. Who are you? My name is Scott. I'm in Indiana, William. Welcome to the chat. May God bless our free country. Oh, we don't have a free country. From evil, and preserve the ability to protect us from evil. Yeah, 000. Yeah, America is the judgment of America has been sealed, and it's coming. It's going to be pretty bad. When people ask me how I'm doing and I say living the dream, it's because I've had a dream from the Lord of what is to come here in the United States. It's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad. I suffer from PTSD, but from bullets or explosions, it's the human factor, not from. Charlie preached morality and having faith in the common man. God knows what's in man. It's not good to have faith in man, but not confidence in man. Oh, Miss Charlie already. Oh, yeah, I didn't know much about him until I got the news today. I know I'd seen his face before in the lamestream prostitutes fucking headlines and all that. Comparing Charlie to Hitler is crazy. I don't know who did that. I didn't see somebody comparing Charlie to Hitler. Rest in peace. Oh, I was talking about the brainwashing and what else did I say about Hitler? Oh, getting the youth. Yeah. I wasn't comparing Charlie to Hitler though. Kim Osborne, you sound stupid. Oh, thank you, Kim. Jesse Waters said 9/11 was by our own government and had proof. They had told the public the second tower had fell while it was still in the background, still standing. Yeah, the BBC reported it. It was on their scripts. And that when I said that about the whole Charlie Kirk thing, immediately all of the news outlets began reading the same scripts. These scripts were written by writers. It was prepared. And these aren't like amazing impromptu writers that just, are able to eloquently write so very quickly, like in real time. Not happening. Everything's got to be written. It's got to be edited. It's got to be checked. It's got to be run through the chief editor before it even gets onto the screen. And they had it all ready, and they had everything ready for the press conference. This whole thing was orchestrated 100%. Who orchestrated it? Well, that's suspect. Yeah, the recent blood moon and planet alignment brings this type of energy, war, and marker point in history, a turning point, if you will. Oh, God said there will be signs in the heavens and signs in the earth and perplexity of nations. Charlie Kakiri, what's going to happen? Oh, are you talking about my dream? I'll tell you in a little bit. New Babylon soon to fall. No, there's, BSAV 67. If you look at, I would encourage you to study the scripture and reconsider the things that you've learned from people about the Bible and read it for yourself. The King James Version, none of the new Bibles. All of the new Bibles are based and founded upon the Alexandrian text and the critical text, which have been proved forgeries and fraudulent manuscripts. But 80% of the new Bibles are owned by Zondervan and Thomas Nelson, publishers, which happen to be owned by HarperCollins, which happens to be owned by Rupert Murdoch, who also owns a lot of the news outlets, and he also owns the Satanic Bible and uh, pornography, as well as homosexual pornography and LGBTQRSTUVWXYZ pornography and propaganda and grooming and what do they call it? Curriculum for children. And so the owner of those new Bibles is involved in all of that. And you can't have a copyright, which is a right to the the intellectual property belongs to you if it was from God. It's not God's word. Those new Bibles. So get away from get into the King James version, and seek the Lord God of heaven. That's really the key right there. Seek Him in verity between you and Him alone, not in some frickin' church service and raising your hand and repeating a prayer, or watching TV or watching a YouTube and repeating somebody's words and going through an emotional moving event. Get real with God. That's what you need to do. You need to get real with God. You need to find mercy because, as I alluded to before, God knows what is in man. There's nothing good in man. There's nothing good in man. We are sinful and we need mercy. That's why Jesus Christ came. He came to give mercy to those who will seek mercy. If we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And I said that to say this: Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, is spoken of in Revelation 17 and 18, and it is the Vatican City without any doubt. But the key to that is that the revival of the ancient gods of Babylon, and that's what the Vatican City has effectively done, was revive the veneration and the worship of all the ancient gods with all of their symbols, with all of their holy days that most Christians believe. Like, Jesus is the reason for the season. No, you're serving fucking Minerva. You're serving the Queen of Heaven. You're serving Semiramis. You're serving Ashtaroth. She had a bunch of different names throughout different cultures. The weeping of Tammuz. It's, the birth of Tammuz. They say that it's Christmas, the birth of Jesus. No, wrong. But anyway, yeah, that's what they're doing and that's what the blaspheming is. If you read the word blaspheme, they're literally attributing that which is unclean to be holy. And that's what blasphemy is. That's one of the many things. What's going to happen? Okay, the new Babylon. Okay, so I'm going back here. I'm just going through. We deserve it. We have become a disgrace. The United States of America is due for judgment, 100%. Kyle Gunther. Someone took someone's life because this person hated his views or beliefs. That's not even, we don't even know that to be true, Kyle. You're just repeating what you're told. First and foremost, they were giving the motive before they even had a suspect. How do you do that? You can't, except it's in the script. That's the only way you can do it. They've already planned this event. Whether he's dead or whether he's alive, I think he's probably dead. But this was a planned event that was carried out by the alphabet agencies. Guaranteed 100%. I know 100%. All of their signature is all over it. Their fingerprints is all over the whole thing. And that is one of those big things that your emotions might block you from critically thinking about it. But how do they come up with a motive without a suspect? A motive is what the intent of a person's heart is for carrying out the crime. If they don't even know the person, how do they know the intent of the heart? They don't. The whole thing is a show, and it's grabbing your emotions, and it's bringing you, and they're leading you with their hooks into your heart. Warning, warning, take heed. Ducties, hold on a second. How do you feel about that? Yeah. Hey, how do you feel? How you doing this evening? I'm doing well, duckies. How are you? Agreed. They all sound the same. Let me see. Wow. It's like I got into the mainstream. I think I got like 44 people here. um, you heard about how the J-10 jet took down an Su-30 MKI jet and 3 Raphael jets? No, I didn't. I didn't hear about that, but that's interesting. Eva D. And it took down a MiG 29 also. A trader got popped. What's the problem? Said they're all traders, I mean, they're all actors. All the people in those positions of power that are, flaunted as celebrities within the right or the left or, paradigm, they've sold themselves, they've sold their souls to Satan. Point well taken. Um, Actual trader. I'm trying to think now. I want to go back and see what point. Okay, so cool. I'm glad you caught that. BSAV 67. It's really important. It really is important. It's a lot more important than most people think. The oddest thing about this whole thing is the diaper boy, I don't know who that is, tweeted and made a public. Oh wait, the diaper. I know who that is. Never mind. The diaper boy tweeted, made a public statement saying, "Never said we're going to find you and prosecute you who did this to the full extent of the law, like he so often." Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's another thing when you question these events. Not only question the information critically that they give us, but let your questions expand out, like T Rex was pointing out, things that aren't being done, things that aren't being said, that would be in a situation like this if it weren't a controlled, orchestrated event. And the intelligence agencies are learning to make these events much more believable because they've learned that when they started making these hoax events, they messed up with some serious mistakes. But it's not Hollywood where they can do cuts and they can, once they go live, they have to go live and they have to play out their script. And they made a lot of mistakes. And there was a lot of YouTube channels that were before this great censorship that were exposing these mistakes, big mistakes. But yeah, ask questions, critically think about what they, expand outside of shut your emotions away, because first and foremost, it's somebody you don't know. That's one. First and foremost, you don't know them. Your heart may be moved in something he said or a political stand that you've related to, and you've gotten emotional with it, whatever. Set your emotions aside and critically analyze the data, the information, the facts that they give us. Look at the people that are crying. Notice there's no tears. Which they've actually started putting what do you call it, like a pepper, like a red chili pepper cream under their eyes to make them tear up. That's an interesting thing. Duper's delight. People start laughing. There's a whole bunch of different things that take place with these events. Um, Heard about the old Siberian air defense system that took down, I don't have a stealth plane, in the 1990s. We are still sorry we didn't know it was supposed to be invisible. Oh yeah, I don't know about that. It's not mine. I meant the USA is. Yeah, I thought that'd be sad, but the USA is not the Babylon. The USA is a mighty empirical force for the one world order, 100%. I believe the Vatican is the epicenter of evil. Yeah, the Vatican has revived, and that's the thing. If you look in Revelation 17 and 18, you will see that this mystery that is revealed, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, this city that sits upon 7 mountains, according to the scripture, clothed in purple and arrayed in golden cup in her hand, with getting drunk off of the blood of the martyrs and of the saints of Jesus Christ, and blaspheming God and um, fornicating with the kings of the earth. You see that it actually describes the Vatican. But I digress. I know I'm getting way behind on the chat here. Holy shit. Did you see the video where it appeared 2 guys are standing on the back of Charlie, and each gave a signal before the shot was fired? No, I did not see that, KP. But if you could give me some kind of a link. I'm pulling up my other phone real quick. Sorry about this. Why is it taking? Man, I got fucking fiber optic network, and it's the YouTube apps can't cut out on me. That's something that could be happening with this. Hold on. Talking about Charlie Kirk. Okay, hold on 1 second here. See how far. Oh, it looks like Okay, I'm not too far away. You said the 2 guys are standing in the back of Charlie. If you can send me a link, like go to my channel and just if you can type a comment in one of my videos with a link there, and I'll look into that because that sounds interesting to me. Those kinds of um, anomalies, or I should say details of these events, are kind of key to figuring them out. And another one is that it happened right at the moment that he was asked a question about that event that was actually a hoax up in Minneapolis. So that's one of those things that I look into. So yes, please, thank you for bringing that up, KP. I know you've been here before. I want to look this. Hold on a second. That's one of the reasons I got on here. So I want to go to your channel and subscribe. KP's got over 1,000 subscribers, and you got content. That's cool. I like when people are chatting and they've got some kind of content, because then I can check out their channel and maybe interact or engage outside of the live stream. Anyway, sorry. Couldn't have been the J10. They started making those in 2002. Oh, interesting. See, Kirk was a Nazi in a suit and tie, and Turning Point used was a child grooming. Was a child grooming hate something? Yeah. Don't be blinded by the fact that it was an assassination. Zynock, I'm not confident that it wasn't. I'm actually pretty, from what I've seen, I'm more prone to believe that it wasn't like the hoax event that took place in July, where they claimed that Donald Trump was had an attempt on his life. That was a hoax. That was a 100% hoax. Got the quickest and best healing ear in the history of the entire world. That's what the rainbow retards do. I don't know what the false flag is. What you're saying, right, brother? So, BSOV 67, a false flag is like 9/11. It's when there is an attack, there is an event where there are people killed or injured or whatever. There's an attack, and it's blamed on another enemy. So like the United States, and they got it from the ships. that all ships bear flags. And so, and the whole use of the false flag was when they would, like say, and I'm just going to throw in, like say United States of America puts a Al Qaeda flag on their ship, and then they bring that ship in and launch an attack against the United States of America, and everybody sees the Al Qaeda flag, and they're like, "It's Al Qaeda!" And then all of a sudden, all of American ships go after Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya and all Syria and all these other places. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But a false flag is an attack that actually took place, that was done by our own government, and they blame it on another enemy, on somebody else that they want to take over. A hoax is where they make it look like there was an attack or a mass shooting, and actually the evidence shows that there was no mass shooting. When you have people say, "Oh, it sounded like firecrackers in a hallway where you've got concrete and steel and somebody's firing off an assault rifle," it didn't sound like a bag of chips being popped, which is what some of the students have said in some of these events. It sounded like somebody popped a bag of chips outside. No, 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 no. If you're outdoors, you have to wear earplugs in order to shoot those things without losing your eardrums. If you're indoors in a steel and concrete building and hallway, and you've got rounds going off, and you don't have earplugs in, your ears are going to be bleeding. If you're within like 150 feet of that, your ears are going to be hurting really bad, if not bleeding. There's no way you would mistake that for what they use in these drills, which are firecrackers and bags of chips, or not bags, but those air pocket bags for packing. They use those poof, 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 in the shooter drills that they're making all these kids go through in these events in these schools before they happen. A guy said yesterday on X that Charlie was afraid of being killed by Israel. Well, yeah, I don't know if he said that or not, but that's another thing. I did hear that he was critical of Israel, which, that's one of the big no-nos in the political arena for the United States anyway. Both political assholes work for the same assholes. Yep. UN, United Nazis. Yes, yes, yes. Yep, those fallen fuckers on my Herman. The fact that they haven't caught him yet with a full-on FBI manhunt in a small and populated city is crazy. We need to do better as a society. I did not agree with Charlie Kirk, but he did not deserve what happened. I don't know. I don't know what, T-Rex might need to take some English literacy lessons. Brian McDougall, the cops and government license criminals and call them saints. Yep. And saints have lied about history since Constantinople. Yeah, Brian McDougall. Brian McDougall is pretty right on that. I gotta go back here now and try to find. Somebody said Charlie went straight to heaven. No, he didn't. No, he didn't go straight to heaven. Oh boy, am I missing a whole bunch? I think I'm missing a whole bunch. Okay, so wait a minute. Where am I? Brian McDougall. I'm looking for you on my other phone here. I'm trying to find it. Okay, maybe Rest in Harmony. Let me see. Go to channel. I know I'm taking out. The early videos had no blood. I don't see any blood. I'm trying to figure out what you're talking about. Blood on. Okay. So, yeah, I gotta read the fact that they caught. We need to do better as a society. I do not agree. Okay. T Rex might. Oh, I already read that. The cops and the government, licensed criminals. I already read that. I do know for a fact that Chari made 100% of his money and podcast celebrity off of the Epstein files, and ever since they announced they won't be released, and Ghislaine Maxwell got pardoned. Oh, um, I didn't know Ghislaine got pardoned. That's interesting. Woke people are getting radicalized. That's don't believe that whole thing, Warlock Gaming. Don't believe it. Must be taught a lesson from the American police. No, yeah. Oh boy, that's the wrong that Warlock. You have been brainwashed heavily to believe that. You really have. You gotta turn off the TV. You gotta stop watching the news feed, and you need to get on your knees and seek the Lord God, because there's a lot of deception in this world. A lot of deception in this world. We are being deceived from our youth. From the time we learn the language of our land, we are taught lies, and they're repeated and they're inundated into us. And we are literally living in a time that was prophesied of from old, from ancient. The words of God were given unto the prophets, and they prophesied the time we're living in, and that it will be full of deception. And it's you need to first and foremost seek God for mercy and have a love for the truth. Jesus Christ says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." Oh, T Rex, I got to share this with you if you're still in here. Um, I want to read through these and share this with you because I want to talk to you. Hey, I wish if I had your number, I would have called you yesterday, dude, or this morning. I got a stalker. I went live with my other channel, my less popular channel, so that I didn't have the feeds going crazy. And this guy came on there, flat earther. Wow. All I can say is wow. Dude turned into a psycho stalker. Um, and it's right in our face. The symbolisms, yes. Vatican absolutely shows evil. Libs want to talk about child grooming. That's one of the narratives that get the hearts of people. Trump assassination attempt. Yeah, yes, the Trump assassination attempt was a hoax. Nobody died. Looks like there is a tub along his collar. His shirt popped up. I did see somebody say something about his shirt popping up out of nowhere. No exit wound from a high power round. It looked like a rubber neck, like those masks skaters wear to pretend to be old. Interesting. Gotcha, brother. Rainbow retards is in regards to the. Yeah, I figured that. Did they catch the pronouns? Yeah. Don't believe that stuff there. Iko wapipi. Iko wapipa. Bad acting on the stage. I didn't see any blood. The amount of blood was horrific. Yeah, there you go. Oh, hey, what happened? Um, all right, Roger X. I'll have a look again. The early videos had no blood. What's the topic about? Oh, Charlie Kirk, man. We're talking about Charlie Kirk. The evil is so visibly on display from those celebrating him being murdered by the far left shows the demonic possession rampant in this country. Well, and that's actually one of the things that I think is very a valid thing to point out is how people are so emotionally invested into the political ideologies that they have been fed. They didn't think of these things on their own. They've been fed them in both the right and the left. And people become very emotional so that they absolutely hate their neighbor without a cause. And Jesus said, if you hate your neighbor without a cause, or your brother without a cause, you're a murderer. You have murder in your heart. Michael, I don't believe that that is true. Oh, yes, he do. Surprise, you know, under duress, most don't unless they in the take. All the AI kings of the earth, all the AI kings of the earth, not 2 days ago, to give all their power and strength unto the beast with one mind to make war with the faithful. Mm-mm. No, you need to read that again in Revelations. God has put it in the hearts of the kings to be of one mind um, to destroy the woman. Hey, the haters, what's going on? Hi, Roger. Where you find this info, T-Rex? So you say Charlie didn't go to heaven? Say not in your heart, who shall ascend into heaven or who shall descend into the earth? You know, we don't know. Just because somebody professes to be good or professes faith in Jesus or professes, in their life, or they show that they're a good person by their deeds or whatever, that has nothing to do with whether they are saved or not. Everything has to do with what is in the heart that we can't see. God is the one that is the judge. And unless a man is born again, he cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I can promise you this, that uh, Charlie Kirk, if he was born again, he would not have been in the position he was in, because he was a puppet being used to promote the left-right puppet show and the divide. God wouldn't allow that for his children. The things that are highly esteemed among men are an abomination unto God. Read the Oath of Jesuits. No creator would ask that of us and wouldn't need us for that. 98% of pre-flood texts are destroyed. Actually, dude, Brian, there's actually no such thing as pre-flood texts. There's no text anywhere written before the Mesopotamian text, and that was long after the flood. That was at least 4 or 5 generations after the flood, when men began to multiply and they started to build the Tower of Babel. That's where the Mesopotamian text and the Epic of Gilgamesh came from, that region where the Tower of Babel was built. Look up the Ziggurat of Babel. Man didn't need written word before God confounded their language, because when man spoke the spoken word, it was recorded perfectly without misunderstanding. T-Rex, Clippy32, you're the one that spelled hoax, yeah. But I'll take some spelling classes just for you, bud. Cheeto Mussolini. Cheetos and Sun Chips on a burger are underrated. I agree. Ah, shit. Flat stalking, yes. Yo, mate. Oh, dude. Yeah, I want to talk about that. Oh, boy, even behind him in that. I could see you good. Like Frenzy. Brian, like the black dude stabbing the white woman in Charlotte because of the fake enslavement history, fake chosen people nonsense, double standard BS. Yeah, could be. No surprise they blame Charlie for Charlie's death. Okay, I'm getting close to the end here. Sorry. Um, I was a medic in the Army. Okay. A hit in the throat does not mean you bleed a lot. That blood can just go to the lungs and drown you. Fluid chooses the easiest path. Yeah, being a medic in the Army, though, you have to recognize that we are bodies. We are literally fleshly balloons that are under pressure. Water balloons, blood balloons that are under pressure. We have tremendous amount of pressure of blood in us. I'm a hunter. Thankfully, I haven't seen too much carnage of man because that's something that just that bothers me. I don't like to see men even injured, let alone dead. It's something that I don't like because man is created in the image of God, and unfortunately, death is the part of the curse of sin. But anyway, yeah, that's an aspect that any medic will know. Um, that anytime that balloon is popped, there's going to be a lot of blood. And it's a very, very rare instance that a bullet will enter into somebody and not bleed, at least in the entrance wound, let alone the exit wound, which is usually where there's more blood. But yeah, I'm a hunter. I shoot animals that are fleshly blood balloons, basically. The saints are frauds. The saints are frauds, but would still believe the Jesus lie. The saints are frauds. Are you talking about the football team? What happened to don't worship the Son? The Creator is the boss. I'm not sure what you mean, but the Godhead is, there are three that bear record in heaven: the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. The Word was in the beginning, and the Word was made flesh, and the Word dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory of the only begotten Son of God. That's who Jesus Christ is. He left his glory to come down to the earth and become a man to be sacrificed. And then he went back to his glory, where he came from. I'll email you sometime today and send my number. Cool, dude. I actually deleted all my hundreds of subscriptions except yours, and one of the digital hive Palantir, okay, has begun. Palantir Vatican has begun. Interesting. I'd like to know what you're talking about there. Rest in peace. All JA and names are false gods. J and Y. Oh, that's not true, Brian. The English language is what we go with here. Brain, what do I? So I should trust someone whose Bible has been changed 3 times before the Bible had never been changed? I don't know what you're talking about. The King James Bible has never been changed. The words have never been changed. The commission of the King James was to translate every single word from the manuscripts, which remained unchanged, that were the Septuagint and the Textus Receptus, the received text, which they had over 5,000 manuscripts, which had remained unchanged throughout the centuries. And so they translated every single word of God into the English language. And there were revisions to the Bible. The very first revisions were because of typo errors on the Gutenberg press. Some typesetting errors is what I should have said. they had to revise the typesetting for corrections of errors of man in the lettering. That was one of the only revisions. And then I know of two revisions that I've heard of in my search, and I've searched the history of the King James very diligently. And the other one was in the late 1700s, when the English language took on a transformation, and the letterings of the words changed. And so they never changed the words, they only changed the spellings of the words to match the English language. They didn't change one word. And the only added words that were put into the King James were italicized to signify that they were added for grammar and not for that they were not included in the original text. So that's a little bit of history for you. Depends what round you're hit with. Revelation 17, 16, 18, not 8 through 17. Oh, okay. You can have one gunshot wound that bleed at all. Wound that bleed at all, it's bleeding internally. I think Indian rally is better, secured, and safe than us rally. Yeah, so I hear you there, Dinovic. That is one of the things that is the rarity. As you know, if you were a medic, there are sometimes a wound will bleed inward only and not outward. They almost all bleed inwardly, but they almost all bleed outwardly. I think they all bleed inwardly, but they almost all bleed outwardly pretty profusely usually, but it's the exception to the rule. And so it's possible. It's possible that somebody gets shot and doesn't bleed out. But the likelihood, it's lower. It's a valid thing to critically think about. I'm not saying that's the fucking nail in the coffin over it. I'm just saying that things should be critically examined and questioned. Jeffrey Epstein, kind of like my the deer that I had last fall, didn't hang itself. Good evening. Pastor Sempa, you're back. Welcome. Hey, did you just find me again, or did you subscribe? I'm curious. Hold on. Lately, just like Flat Earth, there seemed to be a movement saying Jesus is God. He is the Lord. When he was on, that's another thing I do question though. When he was on the earth, I do believe he had to leave the glory, which he said, and he came down as a man, submitted unto the Father, and he left his position as God while he was in the earth, and then went back when he was up. But yeah, that's God's words are true. I think Indian rally is better secured and safe than us rally, U.S. rally. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think that whole thing was orchestrated there, Dalai Lama. The MJ Innocent podcast. Hello, the MJ Innocent podcast. Welcome. Agent Whiskers, if you've seen the uncensored video like we have, he passed away. Agent Whiskers. Okay, I haven't seen it, and like I have said before, I'm reserving my judgment because I do know that many events that have these exact same fingerprints have been hoaxes, and some of them have been orchestrated assassinations, like Stephen Paddock. But the vast majority of these events are hoaxes. So I critically analyze everything, and I don't come to any judgments except for what the evidence is showing. And I can tell you, This has all the fingerprints of the alphabet companies all over it. It's not some fucking transgender angry person, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. That's 100% bullshit. All right, piss. Rest in piss, Charlie Kirk. MJ, I have been crying all day. I don't know. See there, you're letting your emotions take over. I subscribed. Okay, bastard. Yeah, that's one of the keys to us being deceived. God says the heart of man is above all deceptive. That means there's nothing more deceptive than the heart of man. It is above all deceptive, above all things. So we should be vigilant to guard our hearts, for out of our hearts cometh the issues of life. And when our hearts are moved with emotions in an event that we didn't witness ourselves, we're only hearing about it, we're seeing about it, we're watching some video about it, blah, 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 you should set your emotions aside in tragedy and consider what they're giving us and what they're telling us. Um, and there are a lot of questions regarding that. How are they finding a motive? How are all of the mass media, both left, right, alternative, everything, reading the same scripts within minutes of the event? Within 20 minutes, they're all reading the same script. How's that happening? Well, because it was pre-planned. How are they already finding or giving a motive when they didn't even have a suspect? According to the official, and then they already had everybody ready to go give a press conference. And the press conference sounded like a scripted conference. And they all had papers they were reading off of. You know, so those kinds of things are questionable. But I don't. I've gone deep down into the rabbit hole of researching so many of these events that I stopped doing it a while ago, just because. Yeah, I remember one time there was a guy. This is one of the last ones I looked into. For a couple of years, I just left. I quit looking into them because I understand the principle of the hoax events, um, as well as some of the false flag events. There's a lot more hoax events than there are false flags. But there was a guy that was lowering a flag half staff, and I asked him, "Why are you lowering the flag half staff?" He said, "Oh, because of the school shooting. Didn't you hear about it?" I says, "No." And he says, "Oh, yeah, there's a school shooting down in, I think it's Florida." Uh, and he said, like, a whole bunch of kids got shot and killed. And I looked at him and I said, "And you believe it?" And he looked at me like he couldn't believe that I would even question whether or not the news was telling him the truth. And I was just kind of like, "Oh, well, hey, if you believe it, I mean, I don't." I don't believe anything they tell me on the news or, the mainstream until I start searching it out. And then I find out what the truth actually is rather than just swallowing the fucking whole thing they try to push down your throat. That's dangerous. Vile demonic celebrates murder. Yeah. I've been crying all day for the kids shot in Colorado and Florida today. I didn't hear nothing about that either. Anyone celebrating this murder is deceived. How good is that? You mean a good outcome? I don't know what you're talking about. No one will be talking about Charlie in less than a week. Kind of like Hulk Hogan scumbags. Legacies die off real quick. Yes. And the name of the wicked rots away, but the righteous shall be remembered. I hope flags don't fly half staff for that. Yeah. Yeah. Hello from Colorado there, Trey. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. Well, it's been quite engaging this time around. I'm surprised YouTube let me into the mainstream. Yeah, 3 kids shot, Evergreen, Colorado. At least that's what they tell you. Yeah, I don't believe what they tell me. I don't. You know, Missouri, misery. I know someone that's from Missouri. It's called the Show Me State. Of course, me being sexually minded, I thought that was like, hey, show me, right? Nope. I decided I was going to look it up and find out. They named Missouri the Show Me State because in the original conquest of this land, those that colonized and basically homesteaded the land in Missouri would get word from the east of something going on. And out of all the places that had been inhabited, it was specifically the people in that region that was very skeptical, and they refused to believe the news stories that were being brought to them by their ears. And they said, I don't believe it, show me. I don't believe it, show me. And I got to tell you, that is one thing that shows that there was nobility there, because they didn't just believe what they heard, they wanted proof. They wanted to see it. And I thought that was cool. Oh, finding that out. Winking. All right, Winky. I can't even read past your name, man. Why you do that? Now I gotta go to the channel and see. No. He doesn't have any content. But I don't know if I want to see any. You know, it's interesting, Linking. That was one of the things I thought about. You know, Martin Luther King was a controlled agent. He read his script, and his script was to go against the establishment in a way that could garnish the support of the civil rights movement. It was a huge, there's a lot that's being orchestrated that people have no idea. But yeah, that was one of the first things I thought of was, if he's dead, it very well could be like a Martin Luther King thing. It's exactly what I thought. And you're the first person to bring that up. Is going to start a federal gun registry. Yeah. This definitely plays into their movement to restrict firearms. And something else that Kirk was quoted as saying, but I won't give the exact quote because I don't know it. But he said something about death being an acceptable result of having the Second Amendment. Not restricting guns is inevitably going to have death as a result, and that's just the casualty of freedom. Something like that, something to that effect. And so, And that this happened at the exact same time that he was answering a question about one of the hoax shootings that took place up in Minneapolis. It's like, okay, it's all the Zios causing this. Yeah, FT City. America needs to wait. People are just, it's not going to happen. I wish they would, but they're not going to wake up. It's like the Zios got Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Dylan. It wasn't an American. Mossad. The world fears good men. Charlie wasn't a good man. He was an agent. He did what he was supposed to do. He read the script. He rallied the hearts of the people. That's what he did. He was one of theirs. And if he's dead, then that was his time to be taken out of the scene. Time for the next scene to unfold. From Israel, recently said he was scared to talk about Jews in interview. Then this happened. Yeah, he definitely was not a man in the faith of Jesus Christ, the Lord, the only begotten Son of God. If he claimed any faith, that doesn't mean he was probably believing the modern day Jesus of the common modern day church of all the bullshit, the liar. I'll bet you, I'd be willing to bet dollars and dimes that if he was in any way a man of claimed faith, that he was one of those new Bible people. He liked the new Bibles because that Jesus lies. That's another thing. All those new Bibles, they got Jesus Christ lying. Well, if he lied, then he was a sinner. And if he sinned, then his blood wasn't holy and he couldn't atone for any sin. There's a bunch of contradictions in those new Bibles. Okay, Med. The only person that was perfect, that walked the earth, who was feared, was crucified. Yep. After the civil rights laws were passed, said it was a mistake. He sent his people from the frying pan into the burning house. They killed Martin Luther King when he stated, started talking reparations. It's the evil, heat, and sick behind the gun. You're a nut. The whole thing is made up. Every religion is made up because people can't stand to know why they're here. Doesn't matter which religion you choose. Oh, yeah, I'm over myself. I got no reason to think of myself anything more than I am. He was a Christian man. That's an interesting thing. The word Christian. The word Christian shows up 3 times in the entire Bible. the word Christian shows up 3 times in the entire Bible. And you know what? They weren't called Christian. They didn't call themselves Christians. They were called Christians by them that were of Antioch first. And the reason they were called Christians was very interesting. God never called them Christians. They never called themselves Christians. It was the pagans at Antioch that called them Christians first. And the word Christian comes from, it's a compound word in the Greek, Christianos, which comes from 2 root words, Christos and Ianos. Christos means anointed one. Christ, that's where we get the word Christ from, anointed one. But Ianos is Janus, the god Janus, the Greek god Janus. That's what Ianos means. It's his name. And when it puts together Christos Ianos, when it's put together, it means anointed of Janus. It can also mean little anointed ones of Janus, because Janus is considered the where they came from, the way that the Greek language is written. And so Janus was the god of the final endings and new beginnings. That's where January celebration came from. That's where the month January is named after Janus, and that's why their biggest celebration unto Janus was New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. New Year's Eve, they would relish and revel in all sorts of evil and sin and debauchery and fornication, because they had already fulfilled themselves with sin for the year before, from the whole year. And so they fulfilled themselves full of sin all the way up until the ball dropping, the drop of the ball, right? New Year's Eve, then into New Year's Day. And then they would make promises to Janus every year that they would no longer do bad, that they would stop doing bad and they would only do good. And so and when you celebrate New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, you're literally celebrating unto the god Janus. And that's one of the principles that is capitalized in the celebration of these pagan days, people not even knowing what they're about. But I digress back to the word Christian. Antioch was a very central hub of the worship of Janus. And so the people of Antioch would see the saints of God, and they knew the ones that lived in their town. They knew their former lives, and they knew that they were these sinful people. But then all of a sudden, they changed. They witnessed a final ending to their old life and a new beginning to their new life. And so the pagans called them Christians first at Antioch. They were literally attributing that change to the god Janus. And when a person calls themselves a Christian, doesn't matter what you're told it means here in this common time, it's what it actually means in the Bible is what matters. And what was meant in the original language. It means you're calling yourself an anointed one of Janus. When I first became born again in 1998, I just automatically called myself a Christian because everybody that believed in Jesus called themselves a Christian. And then I heard Christian meant to, because I did. I'm like, what does it mean? And the pastor said, oh, it just means that you're a follower of Christ. And I ran with that. I was like, okay, I accepted it. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm a Christian. Then later on, I heard another pastor say it means to be like Christ. I was like, well, that doesn't mean to be a follower if you're saying you're like Christ. And the Bible says let another man's lips praise thee and not thine own. And so I got to thinking, if I'm literally declaring that I am Christ-like, that's praising myself. I said, I just won't call myself a Christian anymore, because I had some questions about the whole meaning of the name. And I determined, if somebody else wants to call me a Christian, that's up to them, but I won't call myself one. And then later, I decided to start learning more about etymology and the meanings of words, because I found out that one of the ways that we are deceived is by being told that a word means something that sometimes exact opposite of what it actually means. Give me an example: the word pedophile. Uh, people say that all the time, and what they really should be saying is abusers of children, because the word pedo is for child, and the word phile comes from phileo, which means it's a brotherly love. It's actually having a consideration for the benefit of another. So the word pedophile means that you love children to their benefit, not what we hear continually in our common vernacular. And so I'm like, yeah, but that's not phileo love that they have. They actually have a very distorted, abusive eros passion for these children to do evil to them. That's not love. That's that's abuse. And so I don't use that word specifically when speaking of people that abuse children. In the same way, I don't use the word Christian to identify the saints of God. God calls us saints, he calls us children, he calls us brethren, he calls us beloved. God has a lot of things that he calls his people. Christian is not one of them. So that was a little bit of a monologue there. So I looks like I'm missing a whole bunch of people speaking here. Charlie, 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 there ain't going to be no security of weapons checks at this event. You cool with that? Sure, everyone loves me. Oh, you better believe they did a security weapons check. They won't even let people go into local concerts without fucking going through their pockets and their purses and their shit. You're a free country. Just disarm yourself every fucking where you go. Again, the label doesn't really matter, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, the label does matter. What we call ourselves, what other people call us, that's up to them. But what we call ourselves, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. And out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so we should watch our words. We have the power of life and death in our words. We have the power of blessing and cursing in our words, in our tongue. And we should be cautious of the words that we use and the words that we receive in our heart. I'm just saying, it does matter. Semantics are a lot of, and truthfully, when you read the scriptures, you should be studying the words of God, rightly dividing them, and escaping the deceptions of churchianity, because churchianity is full of deception. One more thing I want to add about that. Jesus Christ, when he began to expound on the signs to look for before his return in the end of this world, the first thing he said unto people was, take heed unto yourselves that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And that's exactly what we have when people are saying, I'm a Christian. I am Christianos. I am Christos, Ianos, Christianos. That's exactly what people are saying when they say, I am a Christian. And then they proceed to repeat lies that they've learned, or they, like the pastors of the church corporations of this world, they intentionally lie. They use the name Christian or the name Jesus, and they use the word Christian to identify themselves with, and then they lie to the sheep on purpose to collect their money. and to have power over them because they want that, because they really don't believe in God. Yeah, dude, you could. Yeah, T Rex, you could. I'm not catching. I'm sorry, dude. For all the people that are commenting, the chat is moving pretty heavy. It's funny. I got over 100 people in here, which I think is the most I've ever had. And it's probably because I put Charlie Kirk in the fucking thing. I didn't even think about that until after I typed it. And I was like, you know what? That might actually draw people, but it does. And it draws a lot of normies. It's going to draw a lot of normies that are unaware of how the world system works. So praise God, right? I'm not trying to do clickbait. The whole purpose of this thing was to start bringing questions and maybe even get finding answers about this whole Charlie Kirk event, because there's a lot of things about it that aren't adding up. The official narrative is not true. It definitely has a long and hard day. Rest in peace. Yeah, rest in peace. Oh man, I hate to let this go this early, man. But I mean, this when it's cruising along. But hey, it's funny. I got only 15 likes, and I know I've had over 1,000 views on this. But I'm going to end it here. I've already been over 2 hours, and the whole reason I did this live stream was for Brit's sake, because she specifically wanted to do a live stream so we could talk about this, and she never even showed up. Go figure. But hey, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for my haters. Thank you for my trolls. Thank you for my fans and my lovers. Peace.